Now listen, baby, some stories are so wild that if I hadn't lived through it myself, I'd swear it was the plot of a late-night drama on cable TV. And yet here I am, standing in front of y'all, holding onto my sanity with one hand and my dignity with the other, because what I discovered would make even the calmest woman drop her sweet tea. Good evening, everyone. I'm grateful to be here, because sharing this story is cheaper than therapy and a whole lot more entertaining. Today, I'm going to tell you how me, ended up canceling my mother-in-law's credit card after catching her on a shopping spree with my husband's mistress. Take a deep breath, I know. Let Auntie May guide you through it. When someone shows you who they are, you have to start taking notes right then and there, because life does not hand out repeated warnings for free and people rarely act out of character by accident. That day when I walked into that mall and saw my mother-in-law with that woman my husband had been running around with, my whole body stopped like it knew the truth before my mind could even catch up. I stood there in the middle of that shiny hallway watching them glide past perfume counters and glowing storefronts like two ladies without a care in the world. It was in that moment that I realized I had been ignoring little signs for far too long. Little glances, little comments, little moments where something felt off. You know that feeling when your spirit nudges you and says, "Girl, pay attention," but you shake it off because you think you are being dramatic. Well, let me tell you, your spirit is never dramatic. It is honest. It is direct. It is loyal to you even when people around you are not. What I saw that day was not just betrayal. It was truth. Pure truth. Truth that did not care how much it hurt. Truth that did not ask permission to show up. My mother-in-law had her arm hooked around that woman like they had been friends for years, and they were walking like the mall was their personal royal walkway. They were smiling and laughing and waving their bags like the bill was not going to land in my lap. They were comfortable. That is what hit me. Comfort does not grow overnight, and comfort does not lie. If two people are that at ease with each other, you better believe it did not start that morning. When someone shows you their comfort with wrongdoing, do not you dare convince yourself that it was a one-time slip. I used to think my mother-in-law loved me in her own quirky way. You know, the kind of love that requires patience, deep breaths, and a whole lot of grace. But real love does not hide behind your back and walk side by side with someone who wants to take your home and your peace. Real love steps up. Real love protects. Real love at least pretends to have some sense. So when I saw her walking with that woman, not a hint of guilt in sight, I knew right then she had made her choice long before that day. People will always choose the path that serves them best, even if it hurts you in the process. That is not cynicism. That is wisdom earned the hard way. People reveal themselves in the small things long before the big moments blow open the truth. Think back. Think about the way she used to make little suggestions about how I should handle my marriage like she knew better. Think about the way she laughed a little too hard at jokes that involved women trying to keep their husbands in line. Think about the way she always said boys will be boys, as if grown men were toddlers with mortgages. Those were not innocent comments. Those were clues. Clues that she did not value fidelity the way I did. Clues that she thought a woman should just deal with whatever scraps of loyalty a man was willing to toss her way. Clues that she might not think twice about. Standing next to someone who helped tear down my home. Taking notes does not mean holding grudges. Auntie May does not believe in storing bitterness like leftovers in the back of the fridge. Taking notes means acknowledging patterns, not rewriting them with hope instead of honesty. When someone shows you a pattern of selfishness or disrespect or inconsistency, believe it the first time. Do not let your heart be so tender that you make excuses for behavior that would break another woman in half. Your heart is precious and your peace is valuable, and ignoring the truth only delays the hurt that is already on the way. When I saw them, my first instinct was shock, but underneath that shock was clarity. A clarity that I had been avoiding because facing it meant admitting my marriage had cracks so wide you could lose your footing just walking through the door. That clarity told me that my mother-in-law had not simply stumbled into this mess. Oh no, she had walked into it willingly, maybe even joyfully. And if she could do that with a straight face, then I needed to stop giving her the benefit of the doubt. Benefit of the doubt is expensive, honey, and I was tired of footing the bill. People show you who they are not only in how they treat you but in how they treat the people who hurt you. If someone is comfortable linking arms with someone who harmed you, that is all the information you need. Loyalty is not silent. Loyalty is not passive. Loyalty does not stand smiling in a mall with the enemy. Loyalty takes a stand even when it is inconvenient, even when it costs them something. So when you see someone smiling through your pain, take note. They are telling you they do not feel what you feel. They do not carry what you carry. They do not hold your heart with care. And once you know that, you get to decide how close they stay to your life. I could have marched up to them and caused a scene, but wisdom told me that reacting loudly does not fix anything. Observing quietly does. I wanted to memorize everything. The way my mother-in-law looked at her. The way they leaned into each other like old companions. The way she held shopping bags paid for by the household card I had been managing. Each detail was a note. A note that added up to a conclusion I could no longer ignore. Some people will betray you with such ease you will wonder if they ever respected you at all. Do not romanticize loyalty where none exists. Do not imagine bonds that people do not feel. Do not pretend someone has your back when they are already walking at your side only to reach around and stab. Taking notes means trusting your eyes. Trusting your instincts. Trusting that your peace matters more than someone else's version of the truth. In that moment I realized something important. I was not losing a mother figure. I was recognizing who she always was. And that is powerful, baby. When you recognize someone for who they truly are, you stop trying to make them fit into a role they were never capable of holding. You stop wishing for closeness that was never real. You stop grieving relationships that only existed in your imagination. And here is the biggest lesson of all. When you take notes, you protect your future. Because once a person shows you their character, you now have the information you need to make decisions that safeguard your sanity and your dignity. You do not keep giving people access to your life while pretending their betrayal was a misunderstanding. You do not keep hoping they will magically turn into better versions of themselves. People can change, but most choose not to. And it is not your job to wait around and find out. That day I started taking notes like my life depended on it. Because in a way it did. Every time someone misleads you, it chips away at your confidence. Every time someone betrays you, it shakes your foundation. Every time you ignore what you see, you weaken your ability to protect yourself. So take notes boldly. Take notes honestly. Take notes with the knowledge that you deserve relationships built on truth, not illusion. The moment I saw them together, I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and liberation. Heartbreak because betrayal always stings no matter how strong you are. Liberation because once the truth is visible, you are free to act. You cannot fight what you refuse to see. You cannot fix what you pretend is fine. You cannot heal while clinging to lies. That sight opened my eyes so wide I could finally see the path I needed to walk. So let me leave you with this. When someone reveals their true nature, do not close your eyes. Do not soften the edges. Do not rewrite the story so it hurts less. Open your heart to the truth even when it shakes you. It is better to be shaken awake than lulled to sleep by denial. Take notes, baby. Take notes and let the truth guide you to a life where you surround yourself with people who honor you, respect you, and stand with you, not against you. Loyalty is not hereditary, and the day I realized that truth, it felt like someone pulled a rug from under my feet, yet at the same time freed me from a weight I had been carrying without noticing. People love to tell you that family will always stand by you, but life has a way of teaching you that blood does not guarantee devotion and shared history does not guarantee support. What matters is the heart, not the family tree. And honey, some people have family trees that produce shade but no shelter. When I first married into that family, I believed wholeheartedly that my husband's mother would treat me like a daughter. She said all the right things at the wedding. She hugged me tight and smiled for every picture. She told everyone how happy she was to welcome me into the family as though I were a long-lost child. I held onto those words like they were promises carved into stone. But words are soft and loyalty is hard, and the two are not always friends. With time I started seeing things that did not quite sit right, but I brushed them off, thinking maybe she is adjusting, or maybe she did not mean it that way. I offered grace over and over, not realizing she was giving me truth over and over, and I was ignoring it. The real awakening came when I saw her strolling through that mall with the woman who had been slipping around with my husband. They were walking side by side, talking with the ease of old companions. I watched their bodies lean in as they whispered and laughed. Their steps matched like they had practiced. And that sight hit me like a revelation. Loyalty is not passed down like eye color. It is not inherited like a last name. It is a choice. And she had chosen. She chose ease. She chose entertainment. She chose companionship with someone who helped tear apart my life. She chose everything but me. People sometimes act like mothers are natural protectors of marriages, but that is not always true. Some mothers protect their sons even against the wives they claim to love. Some mothers think their sons can do no wrong, and if a woman is hurting it must be her fault for not being enough. Some mothers feel competition with the wives of their sons without ever admitting it. They smile in your face and gather stories behind your back. They hug you at holidays, then turn around and support the very people who bring you pain. That is not loyalty. That is possession disguised as love. And it is important to name it for what it is. When I saw her with that woman I felt a deep ache but also a deep clarity. Loyalty cannot be assumed simply because you married her son. Loyalty has to be demonstrated. Loyalty has to be earned and given. Loyalty requires integrity, and that day showed me she had no intention of offering me any of that. To her I was optional. I was replaceable. I was someone she tolerated but did not honor. And that realization hurt, but it also saved me. Too many women stay in situations where they keep trying to win the approval of people who have already decided not to value them. They bend over backward hoping to prove their worth to in-laws who made up their minds long before the wedding cake was cut. They accept crumbs believing that one day the family will see their heart and treat them with respect. But sweetheart, the truth is simple. You cannot earn loyalty from someone who does not believe you deserve it. And you cannot pour your heart into people who treat you like an outsider when you are doing everything you can to build a home with their child. The moment I watched her laughing with that woman, my spirit told me loud and clear, stop expecting loyalty where it does not exist. Stop trying to build bridges to people who are busy digging tunnels beneath your feet. Stop nurturing relationships that drain you more than they sustain you. Family is not defined by blood but by behavior. People show you their loyalty through action, not relation. And that day her actions screamed louder than any polite words she had ever spoken to me. I stood there in that mall questioning everything I had accepted as normal. I remembered how she used to shrug off my concerns when I mentioned my husband's suspicious behavior. She would tell me he was stressed or tired or going through something and that I needed to be patient. I remembered how she never asked how I felt even when she could see my eyes were swollen from crying. I remembered how she changed the subject anytime I needed emotional support. At the time I thought she was trying to protect her son. Now I understand she was protecting the fantasy that her son was perfect and that any problems in the marriage must be mine alone. Loyalty requires honesty, and she could not be honest without threatening the image she wanted to uphold. So instead she aligned herself with anything and anyone who helped her avoid the truth. Including that woman. That was the part that stung most. If she had been protecting her son I could have almost understood it. But she was laughing with the woman who was betraying me. That was not about protecting her son. That was about choosing sides in a way that revealed she never considered me part of her side at all. That day I realized something powerful. You do not have to fight for a seat at a table where the people at the table do not care if you fall. Family is more than shared DNA or shared last names. Family is who stands beside you when your life falls apart. Family is who protects you when your heart is breaking. Family is who refuses to align with the ones who cause your pain. Family is who stands up for truth even when it is uncomfortable. And by those definitions I did not have family in that woman at all. I also learned that some people confuse closeness with convenience. My mother-in-law spent time with that woman because it was convenient. She could pretend everything was fine. She could enjoy the company. She could gossip. She could indulge in the drama. People who thrive on drama will always choose the side that gives them the most entertainment. Those people cannot offer loyalty because their hearts are tied to excitement, not commitment. And that day I saw exactly who she really was. A woman who valued attention and companionship more than integrity. A woman who cared more about being entertained than being ethical. A woman who did not see me as a daughter but as a disposable extension of a son she wanted to protect even from his own wrongdoing. When you understand that loyalty is not hereditary, you stop blaming yourself for other people's betrayal. You stop thinking maybe I could have done more. You stop thinking maybe if I tried harder they would treat me differently. No honey, loyalty does not respond to effort. Loyalty responds to character, and their character had nothing to do with my worth. I walked out of that mall with a new understanding of what kind of woman I was dealing with. It hurt but it enlightened me. It broke me open but it allowed me to see clearly. And from that moment forward I promised myself I would no longer give loyalty to anyone simply because tradition said I should. I would give loyalty to those who earned it, those who showed it, those who lived it, and she was not one of those people. The beauty of this realization is that once you stop hoping for loyalty from disloyal people you free yourself from disappointment. You free yourself from the cycle of expectation and heartbreak. You free yourself to create your own definition of family. You free yourself to build a circle that protects you, lifts you and values you. You free yourself to say I deserve better and mean it. So yes, loyalty is not hereditary. It cannot be passed down like recipes or family stories. It has to be chosen. And the day she chose that woman over me I understood the truth with full clarity. She had never been loyal. She had only been present. And presence without loyalty is nothing but an empty seat at a table you no longer need to sit at. Your money should never fund your misery, and the moment I understood that truth I felt a power rise in me that I had forgotten I possessed. Money might not buy happiness, but honey, it surely can buy foolishness if you let the wrong people have access to it. And that day when I saw my mother-in-law and that woman walking around the mall with bags swinging like trophies bought with the card I paid for, something inside me snapped awake. It was not rage. It was not jealousy. It was pure clarity. Clarity so sharp it felt like it cut through every illusion I had been holding onto. I stood there thinking about every bill I paid, every sacrifice I made, every time I looked at that credit card statement and said to myself, well, she is family and it is just a few small charges. I convinced myself that kindness was always the right choice. I convinced myself that supporting her was a natural part of being a good wife. I convinced myself that generosity would lead to gratitude. But that is not how life works. Some people take and take and take because they see you as an endless source, not a human being. And when you give without boundaries you end up financing people who would not lift a finger to help you if you collapsed right in front of them. Money reveals people. It reveals their intentions. It reveals their character. It reveals their values. And let me tell you that mall trip revealed everything I needed to know. My money had been feeding disrespect. My money had been fueling betrayal. My money had been buying comfort for people who were destroying mine. And the moment that truth hit me I knew something had to change. People like to pretend that money is just material, that it does not matter, that love should rise above finances. But baby, money is energy. Money is time. Money is labor turned into survival. So when someone uses your money to support the person who is tearing your home apart, that is not just financial misuse, it is emotional violence. It is spiritual theft. It is betrayal measured in dollars and receipts. I thought about how many times I had covered that card without question. I thought about how I had quietly accepted small purchases for groceries or gas because I wanted to help. I thought about how I let the card stay active even when I saw little charges that did not make sense because I believed in giving the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to believe she would never do anything intentionally harmful. I wanted to believe she cared about my well-being. I wanted to believe my support mattered. But what I failed to see was that she was not using my generosity as a bridge. She was using it as a cushion to live comfortably while she cozied up with my husband's mistress. That card was not just plastic. It was access. Access to my effort. Access to my stability. Access to my hard work. And she used that access to sponsor lies. To sponsor deception. To sponsor little outings that should have never existed. Imagine paying for your own heartbreak without even knowing it. Imagine walking through a mall thinking you might treat yourself to a candle and instead discovering that you have unknowingly funded the downfall of your own marriage. That moment felt like swallowing ice. Cold and heavy yet undeniable. When I took in that scene I realized that my money had been working against me instead of for me. And there is nothing more painful than discovering that the resources you sweat for are being used to celebrate your pain. She was laughing. She was carefree. She was enjoying herself like she was on a vacation funded by the bank of my foolish kindness. And honey, that is when I knew the card had to go. Canceling that card was not petty. It was necessary. It was a boundary that should have been set long ago. And here is what I learned. Anytime your money is being used to sustain someone who disrespects you, you are participating in your own mistreatment. You are underwriting the actions of people who do not value you. You are co-signing disrespect with your silence. And when you stop the flow of funds, baby, you stop the flow of foolishness too. I remember calling that credit card company. I spoke so calmly the representative probably had no idea I was in the middle of a revelation that might as well have been a spiritual awakening. She asked me, "Are you sure you want to cancel the card?" I told her I had never been more sure of anything in my life. I felt strength in my voice that had been missing for months. It felt like reclaiming something that belonged to me and had been stolen right under my nose. Some people say money should never come between family. But I say disrespect should never come between peace, and anything that funds disrespect should be cut off without hesitation. Family does not entitle someone to your wallet, especially when they are draining your life while laughing with the people who harm you. Family does not give them permission to misuse your generosity. Family does not excuse betrayal. Loyalty requires accountability, and if they cannot show loyalty, they do not deserve access. The truth is this: money is a tool, and you choose whether it builds your life or breaks it. I had been letting my money build comfort for people who had no intention of building anything for me. They wanted the benefits of my labor without offering the respect that should come with it. They wanted to enjoy the privileges of my kindness without honoring the trust behind it. That is a lesson you only need to learn once if you learn it deeply enough. I realized that day that financial boundaries are a form of self-respect. Saying no to funding your own mistreatment is not selfish. It is wise. It is protective. It is long overdue. And once I understood that, I started seeing every past decision in a new light. Every time I covered something for her. Every time I said, "It is fine, I will take care of it." Every time I swallowed my discomfort because I did not want tension. All of that was me teaching her that she could use me financially without consequence. I had trained her to expect my support regardless of her behavior. That is why the mall scene happened so easily. Because she did not see me as a person to honor. She saw me as a resource. And resources do not have feelings. Resources do not require loyalty. Resources are used until they are empty. I refused to continue being her resource. Money cannot heal betrayal, but it can stop fueling it. By cutting off the card, I cut off the convenience. I cut off the comfort she had been enjoying at my expense. I cut off her ability to treat my generosity like a limitless stream. Most importantly, I cut off the part of myself that believed supporting her was my duty. My duty was to myself, to my sanity, to my dignity, to my future. The most powerful moment was not canceling the card. It was the instant after. When I felt a calm wash over me. A steady certainty that I had done the right thing. It felt like closing a door that had been letting in cold air for far too long. It felt like finally turning the lock on a boundary that should have been guarded from the start. It felt like reclaiming my financial and emotional autonomy. And that feeling was worth more than money could ever buy. People may judge. People may say I was harsh. People may say I should have handled it differently. But none of those people were paying that card. None of those people were living with betrayal. None of those people were financing their own humiliation. Only I was. And only I had the right to decide when enough was enough. Your money should never fund your misery. Not a little bit. Not temporarily. Not with excuses. Not for family. Not for anyone. If someone wants access to your resources, they must show respect. They must show loyalty. They must show gratitude. And if they cannot do that, then you owe them nothing. Not a card. Not a loan. Not a single cent of your hard-earned energy. The moment you stop financing people who harm you, you reclaim your power. You reclaim your peace. You reclaim your life. And baby, that is worth every cancelled card in the world. Never be afraid to reclaim your power, because the truth is this life will hand you moments where your spirit gets shaken and your confidence gets chipped and your heart feels worn down to threads, but even in those moments your power is still yours. It might be buried under disappointment or wrapped in confusion or tangled up in heartbreak, but it never leaves you. It waits. It waits for the moment you finally say enough. It waits for the moment you decide that you are done shrinking to make other people comfortable. It waits for the moment you stop pretending that disrespect feels like love. It waits for the moment you stop letting fear hold the pen that writes your story. That day in the mall when I saw my mother-in-law with that woman who had been sneaking around with my husband, I felt something shift inside me. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was steady. It was solid. It was the quiet voice of my own power rising from a place I had forgotten existed. As I watched them laughing and strolling as if they were the queens of the building, I realized something important. I had been giving away pieces of my power without noticing it. I had been handing over my strength little by little in the name of peace, in the name of family, in the name of patience. I had been dimming myself because I thought keeping harmony was more important than holding my ground. What I did not see was that my silence was not creating peace. It was feeding their boldness. When you let people walk over your boundaries, they start thinking the floor belongs to them. And when you let people disrespect you without consequence, they start thinking disrespect is their right. I had been trying to be the bigger person for so long that I forgot the bigger person is still allowed to have a backbone. The bigger person can say no. The bigger person can walk away. The bigger person can shut doors that are hurting them. Clarity hit me like a sunrise. I had been tolerating too much for too long, and that day was the final wake-up call. Reclaiming your power is not about yelling or throwing scenes or proving your point to people who have already decided to misunderstand you. Reclaiming your power is quiet strength. It is the strength of standing tall even when your heart is trembling. It is the strength of saying I deserve better without needing anyone else to agree. It is the strength of removing yourself from situations where you are not valued. And that strength is something nobody can take from you unless you hand it over. I remember standing there feeling the heaviness of betrayal but also the clarity of truth. I saw my mother-in-law treat that woman like she was part of the family. I saw her ignore the pain she knew I was carrying. I saw her choose companionship with someone who had been attacking the foundation of my home. And I realized that if I kept waiting for her to show me loyalty, I would be waiting forever. That realization was painful but necessary. Because reclaiming your power starts with accepting reality, not wishing reality was different. I walked out of that mall with a new sense of purpose. Every step felt like I was picking up pieces of myself that I had scattered, trying to be the perfect wife, the dutiful daughter-in-law, the understanding partner. But those roles had drained me because they required me to ignore my own needs, my own intuition, my own worth. Reclaiming your power means recognizing that your needs matter too. That your feelings deserve space too. That your voice deserves to be heard even if it shakes when you speak. And baby, my voice had been silent for far too long. That day I realized something vital. Power does not ask permission. Power does not wait to be acknowledged. Power is something you step into the moment you decide you are done accepting less than what you deserve. Power is the moment you take responsibility for your own happiness instead of hoping someone else will protect it for you. Power is the moment you stop letting fear guide your choices. Fear whispers, what if things get worse? Power answers, what if things get better once you stop settling? People who benefit from your silence will always prefer you quiet. People who benefit from your compliance will always want you small. People who gain from your lack of boundaries will always get uncomfortable when you start setting them. That discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not responsible for protecting their comfort while sacrificing your own dignity. You are responsible for honoring yourself. Reclaiming your power is also about refusing to carry shame for someone else's actions. I spent months confused, wondering what I had done wrong, what I lacked, what made my husband wander. That guilt sat on my chest like a weight and kept me from seeing the situation clearly. But standing in that mall, I understood the truth. His choices were his own. Her choices were her own. And my mother-in-law's choices were certainly her own. I was not responsible for any of it. Carrying that guilt had dimmed my spirit. Letting go of it was like taking a deep breath for the first time in a long time. Power returns the moment you stop apologizing for things you did not cause. It returns when you release the false belief that you must stay quiet to be loved. It returns when you stop prioritizing other people's comfort above your own well-being. It returns when you say no more. Not today. Not again. Reclaiming your power is not a single moment. It is a series of choices. It is the choice to cancel the card. It is the choice to walk away from toxic ties. It is the choice to stop defending yourself to people who do not care about the truth. It is the choice to invest in your future instead of clinging to a painful past. It is the choice to put yourself back at the center of your own life. When I got home that day, I sat down and took a breath. A long, slow, grounding breath that felt like a prayer. Then I picked up the phone and canceled that credit card. The act was small but symbolic. It was the first brick in the foundation of my reclaimed power. It was me saying I am done financing my own suffering. I am done letting my resources support people who undermine me. I am done giving access to those who treat me like an afterthought. Canceling that card was not about money. It was about reclaiming control. But the deeper power was internal. It was the way I held myself differently. The way I stopped justifying bad behavior. The way I stopped trying to reason with people who were committed to disrespecting me. The way I finally put value back into my own worth. I felt taller, stronger, more awake, more myself. Reclaiming your power often means disappointing people who expect you to remain quiet and agreeable. It means setting boundaries that others never expected you to enforce. It means walking away from relationships that looked stable from the outside but were draining you from the inside. And yes, you will feel fear. Yes, you will feel lonely at times. Yes, you will question whether you made the right choices. But choosing yourself is never wrong. Choosing your peace is never wrong. Choosing your dignity is never wrong. There is a strength that comes from realizing you survived what should have broken you. There is a confidence that comes from recognizing you can rebuild from nothing. There is a grace that comes from understanding you do not need anyone's approval to honor yourself. And that kind of power does not fade. It grows. The moment you reclaim your power, you step into a version of yourself that is harder to shake. Harder to manipulate. Harder to break. You become someone who sees clearly. Someone who trusts themselves. Someone who values themselves. Someone who understands that peace is priceless and self-respect is sacred. Once you reclaim your power, you never again tolerate being treated like an option. You never again settle for half-hearted loyalty. You never again allow anyone to use your kindness as an open door to mistreat you. You become the author of your own life, not a character in someone else's drama. So yes, reclaiming your power is essential. It is the turning point in every story of healing. It is the moment everything changes. And baby, once you step into that power fully, you will never go back to the woman who stood in silence while her world fell apart. You become someone stronger, wiser, and beautifully unshakable. Silence is sometimes the loudest statement you can make, because there are moments in life when words fall short and explanations feel like wasted breath, and anything you say will only feed the foolishness you are trying to escape. Silence may look small on the outside, but baby, silence has weight. Silence has power. Silence can shake a room harder than shouting ever could. Silence tells the truth without decoration. Silence draws a line that nobody can pretend not to see. And that day in the mall, when I stood there watching my mother-in-law smiling and walking side by side with the woman who had been sneaking around with my husband, I felt the strength of silence rise in me like a tide. In that instant I understood that speaking would do nothing. If I opened my mouth and confronted them in the middle of that mall, they would twist the story. They would deny. They would pretend. They would claim misunderstandings. They would perform innocence with the skill of seasoned actors. And even worse, I would look like the emotional one, the dramatic one, the overreacting one. Sometimes people weaponize your voice. They take your words and use them as tools against you. They twist them, they soften them, they exaggerate them until your truth becomes unrecognizable. But silence is untouchable. Silence leaves no room for manipulation. Silence is a mirror that forces people to sit with what they have done. I stood there quietly, and that quiet was not weakness. It was strategy. It was dignity. It was power. The silence between us said more than any confrontation ever could. My silence said, I see you. My silence said, I know exactly what is happening. My silence said, I will not lower myself to a spectacle for people who already made their choices. My silence said, I am done engaging with this nonsense. Silence can be a shield that protects your peace when words would only start a fire that burns you more than it burns them. A lot of people misunderstand silence. They think it means you are afraid, or that you are unsure, or that you are hurting too badly to speak. But silence can be clarity. Silence can be decision. Silence can be the most controlled response you have left. I was not silent because I was confused. I was silent because I understood everything too clearly. I was silent because nothing they could say would matter. I was silent because the truth did not need narration. When someone betrays you, their words no longer carry weight. They can apologize. They can justify. They can deny. They can cry. But none of it means anything when their actions have already told the real story. And the real story was standing right in front of me in that mall aisle. My mother-in-law, who I had supported and respected and tried to bond with, was walking comfortably with a woman who had been tearing apart my home. And not only walking but enjoying herself, living freely, spending money that ultimately came from my labor. They did not look ashamed. They did not look nervous. They did not look hesitant. They looked comfortable, and comfort reveals truth more clearly than confession. Silence lets people reveal themselves. Silence gives them space to keep showing who they are without interruption. Silence keeps you from stepping into the role of defender or accuser. You simply witness. You observe. You stand still while their behavior speaks louder than your voice ever could. And honey, their behavior was shouting that day. Shouting that they had no respect for me. Shouting that they had no loyalty to me. Shouting that they did not care how their actions affected my heart, my marriage, or my peace. My silence gave their truth room to echo. Silence also protects your spirit, because arguing with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you is like trying to swim in sand. You will exhaust yourself and get nowhere. People who betray you do not suddenly gain empathy just because you explain your pain. People who enjoy drama will only use your emotions as entertainment. People who lack integrity will pretend confusion no matter how clear the situation is. Silence frees you from trying to make them see what they do not want to see. When I walked away without saying a word, I felt a strength inside me that I had not felt in months. It was the kind of strength that comes from choosing yourself. The kind that comes from refusing to engage in anything that steals your peace. The kind that comes from realizing that silence can be the first step toward healing. Leaving the situation with silence was not about avoidance. It was a declaration. I was declaring that I would not play the game they had created. I was declaring that I would not let them pull me into a public spectacle. I was declaring that they were not worth my words. Because words are precious. Words have value. And not everyone is worthy of hearing yours. People think courage is always loud. They think courage is shouting or fighting or confronting someone head-on. But there is a softer kind of courage that is often stronger. The courage to walk away. The courage to stay calm. The courage to withhold your energy. The courage to let your silence do the speaking. That is the courage I leaned on that day. And it carried me with more grace than any argument ever could. Silence also gives you space to think. Space to breathe. Space to plan your next step without reacting out of raw pain. If I had spoken that day, I would have spoken from a wound. And words spoken from a wound can cut deeper than necessary. They can create damage you later regret. They can keep you tangled in drama you are trying to escape. But silence allowed me to think clearly. It allowed me to step back emotionally and see the situation for what it was, not what my feelings feared it was. Silence let me respond instead of react. Silence gave me control when everything around me felt chaotic. When I finally got to my car, I sat there letting the quiet settle around me. The silence inside that car felt like a balm to my spirit. It felt like the first deep breath I had taken in weeks. I realized that my silence in the mall was not the end. It was the beginning. It was the first step toward reclaiming my dignity, my boundaries, and my future. That silence became the foundation for every decision I made afterward. Canceling the card, setting boundaries, refusing to tolerate disrespect, refusing to keep participating in relationships that drained me. All of that started with silence. Because silence is not empty. Silence is full, full of choices, full of clarity, full of self-respect, full of power. Silence is the moment where you gather your strength before you take action. Silence is where your heart whispers the truth your mind has been afraid to say out loud. Silence is where you understand that you do not need validation from the people who harmed you. Silence is where you begin to choose yourself. Silence teaches you who deserves your voice. Your voice is sacred. Your voice carries your truth. Your voice is your strength. And not everyone is worthy of hearing it. Some people have shown that they cannot be trusted with your words. Some people have shown that they twist and manipulate anything you give them. Some people have shown that they do not listen. So silence becomes the reminder that you are protecting something valuable. Your peace, your sanity, your dignity. And let me tell you something else. Silence is often the only language that certain people truly understand. Loud voices can be ignored. Explanations can be dismissed. Accusations can be flipped. But silence leaves them alone with themselves. Silence forces them to confront their own behavior without distraction. Silence makes them sit in the discomfort of their actions. Silence shows them that they cannot pull you into their chaos. Silence shows them that you are done participating in the cycle. Even now when I look back, I do not regret staying silent in that moment. If anything, I am proud of it. That silence was strength. That silence was growth. That silence protected my dignity more than any confrontation could have. And that silence marked the moment I stepped fully into my own power. So yes, silence is sometimes the loudest statement you can make. It says I see you. It says I know my worth. It says I am done engaging with foolishness. And most importantly, it says I will not let your behavior pull me out of character. My silence was not weakness. It was the beginning of my liberation. And baby, once you learn how powerful silence can be, you never waste your breath on the wrong people again. There comes a moment in every story where you stop waiting for an apology that will never come, and you stop expecting people to suddenly grow a conscience they never had, and you stop hoping they will wake up one morning and finally understand the pain they caused. There comes a moment when you look at the shattered pieces in front of you and you decide that instead of standing there barefoot trying not to bleed, you will step back, lift your head and walk toward your own healing. That moment for me came after the dust settled and the cards were cancelled and the door was closed behind every person who showed me who they truly were. Healing was not a soft, gentle thing for me. Healing was a choice I had to make every single day. Healing was messy and slow and lonely sometimes, but it was also the strongest, most beautiful promise I ever made to myself. Healing begins with acceptance, not approval. I did not approve of what happened. I did not approve of the betrayal, of the disrespect, of the boldness with which they played in my face. But I accepted the truth because healing cannot grow in denial. Acceptance meant seeing my marriage as it truly was, not as I wished it had been. Acceptance meant acknowledging that people I cared for were capable of choices that cut me deep. Acceptance meant facing the fact that the loyalty I gave was not the loyalty I received. When I finally accepted those truths, I felt something inside me begin to loosen like a knot that had been pulling tight for months. Healing also meant learning to trust myself again. Betrayal shakes your sense of reality because you start questioning everything you saw, everything you felt, everything you suspected. You wonder if you imagined the signs, or if you ignored your own intuition, or if you simply loved too hard and trusted too openly. But as I sat inside the quiet of my own thoughts, I realized my intuition had always whispered the truth. I just wanted so badly to believe in the good in people that I brushed those whispers aside. Part of healing was promising myself that I would never again silence the voice inside me that tried to protect me. I had to rebuild trust with my own spirit before I could trust anyone else. Healing required boundaries too, not the flimsy kind that break at the first sign of someone pushing. No, I needed strong boundaries built from self-respect and experience. Boundaries that said you cannot come into my life with chaos and expect a seat at my table. Boundaries that said access to me is earned, not taken for granted. Boundaries that said the old version of me who overgave, who over-explained, who over-forgave is gone and she is not coming back. When I put up those boundaries, they felt strange at first. I had grown used to being the one who fixed everything and held everything together. But healing taught me that my peace is not negotiable. With healing came grief too. People think grief only belongs to death, but grief also belongs to betrayal. You grieve the version of the relationship you thought you had. You grieve the future you imagined. You grieve the trust that was broken. You grieve the moments you now look back on with new eyes. I let myself cry. I let myself feel. I let myself sit in the heaviness instead of pretending everything was fine. Every tear was a release. Every quiet night was a step forward, even if it did not feel like one at the time. As I healed, I also began to reclaim my joy. Not the loud joy that needs an audience. The quiet joy that lives inside you. The joy that comes from waking up and feeling at peace. The joy that comes from looking in the mirror and liking who you are becoming. The joy that comes from knowing you walked through betrayal and did not let it harden your heart. I learned to laugh again. I learned to breathe again. I learned to go about my day without carrying the weight of someone else's choices on my shoulders. Healing reminded me that I am more than what I went through. I am more than the pain I endured. I am more than the story they tried to write for me. Healing also helped me let go of revenge. Now let me be honest. At first the idea of revenge was tempting. The hurt inside me wanted to see accountability delivered like lightning. But revenge is a poison that tastes sweet at the start but sour later. Healing taught me that I did not need revenge. My peace was revenge. My growth was revenge. My silence was revenge. My decision to move forward and build a better life was revenge. Healing taught me that the best way to make sure they do not win is to refuse to let the hurt they caused define the rest of your future. Another part of healing was learning to forgive myself. Not them, myself. I forgave myself for staying too long. I forgave myself for giving the benefit of the doubt to people who did not deserve it. I forgave myself for loving deeply in a place that did not honor that love. I forgave myself for not seeing the truth right away. I forgave myself for being human. Self-forgiveness freed me from shame. And once the shame slipped away I could finally stand tall again. Healing was not a straight line. Some days I woke up strong, ready to conquer the world. Other days the memories hit me like waves and I had to sit with them until they faded. Healing is patient. Healing does not punish you for having a hard day. Healing waits for you. Healing walks with you, not ahead of you. And over time I noticed something shift. The pain that once felt sharp softened. The memories that once felt heavy became distant. The anger that once burned began to fade. One day I woke up and realized the hurt was no longer controlling me. I was controlling me. Healing also brought clarity about who deserved a place in my life. Some people disappeared naturally when they realized I was no longer available for their nonsense. Others I had to let go intentionally. Healing makes your vision clear. You start seeing who adds value and who drains your spirit. You start seeing who cheers for you and who only shows up when they need something. Healing helped me curate a circle of people who uplift me, love me and respect me. That circle may be smaller now, but it is stronger and healthier than ever. Most importantly, healing gave me myself back. I had lost pieces of myself trying to keep a broken situation standing. I had dimmed my own light trying to keep the peace. I had poured so much into the wrong places that my own cup sat empty. But healing helped me gather every piece I had given away. I took back my strength. I took back my confidence. I took back my peace. I took back my voice. I took back my future. And when I looked at who I became through that healing, I realized I am stronger now than I ever was before. Healing is not about pretending it never happened. Healing is about knowing it happened and still choosing to rise. Healing is about learning the lessons without carrying the bitterness. Healing is about letting your scars remind you of your victory, not your victimhood. Healing is about understanding that you cannot control other people, but you can control how you rebuild. Healing is the quiet miracle you give yourself. And baby, let me tell you something. Walking through betrayal did not break me. It birthed me. It revealed a version of me I had never met before. A wiser version. A braver version. A more grounded version. A version of me who knows her worth with unshakable clarity. A version who will never again tolerate disrespect dressed as love. A version who knows she deserves peace, honesty and loyalty. A version who is ready to step forward into a new chapter that belongs only to her. Here is what healing taught me in the end. You cannot control who hurts you, but you can control who gets to stay in your life after the hurt. You cannot force people to value you, but you can value yourself enough to walk away. You cannot rewrite their actions, but you can rewrite your own future. And with every choice you make in your healing journey, you turn your pain into wisdom, your heartbreak into strength, and your past into a stepping stone instead of a chain. I am healed, not because everything went back to normal, but because I built a new normal that honors who I am now. I healed because I chose myself. I healed because I refused to let betrayal define me. And once you truly heal, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that can ever break you the same way again.